What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Panels on Pages. My name is Dollyboard, and today we are speaking with Grant Lankard of Beowulf fame. If you do not know, you should definitely be on the Kickstarter currently for issue 1 through 5, but 5 is the newest issue that's coming out. I actually just read 1 through 4 because I have so many digital comics and so little time.
You
How are
join
you
the
doing?
club. I'm doing great. Yeah, I think that's a common problem, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's something that plagues us all, especially those of us who are like part of the community and we want to support others as well. So it's like we
Right.
have like, I'm working on finishing up a book and editing and all this stuff. And it's like I also want to back people. So I've got a bunch of Kickstarters going on, and it's like, when am I going to read it? At some point. So I bring people on that forces me to read this stuff. So it kind of serves as a double purpose.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we all have that problem, right?
Yeah, definitely. For those who don't know, why don't you give us a quick breakdown of Beowulf and what it's about?
So Beowulf is the story of the guy that you learned about in high school, but he's been reincarnated in modern times as a 30-something slacker. And his sidekicks are a 13-year-old girl and a cat with magic powers.
I the first of all, that setup is great. I just having just read them all straight, I really think this would be an incredible animated series. So that is something that, if the opportunity makes itself available, please do, because I would watch the shit out of that. I, just
Yeah, if it
there's just such great moments. For I didn't catch that she was 13 though. I thought like mid-teens, like
Oh, okay.
I didn't catch that. I didn't catch that, but my reading comprehension is also not the greatest, so that's not really much
I,
saying much. That's not saying much for me.
Well, yeah, I think the art, like sometimes she looks 13, sometimes she looks a little bit older. So yeah, I mean that's maybe something that we need to work on. But yeah, yeah, she's supposed to be like 13 around that age.
I love the honest questions though. The when she finds out the cat talks and she's like, "Have you always been able to talk?" Yes. Have like, how about those times when you just scratched the shit out of me when you didn't get rubbed the right way? It's like scratching got my point across, and I was like, "That's you know what? That's reasonable. That's a fair point."
Yeah, I think when I was doing the comic book, it when people are a lot of times in comic books or movies or TV shows, when people are thrust into a ridiculous situation, they're a little bit too likely, too quick to believe everything. And I feel like that was kind of the goal. Like I had Hazel. Hazel's kind of the audience surrogate, and she kind of asks all the ridiculous questions that we would be asking.
And I love that. I appreciate that. There's definitely been a lot of situations, whether in fantasy or sci-fi. The one that always sticks out in my brain is Mark Wahlberg's character in Transformers, I don't know, 36 or whatever it was, whenever he was introduced. Uh he like he he's like a junkyard mechanic guy, and then out of nowhere is like great with weapons and tactics, just like out of nowhere, absolutely out of nowhere. And I was like, can, can we just have like a minute or just like something to give us an idea of why this guy's like just just an expert at handling like alien weapons, and just I don't know. There's always something that's like, can we get just a little bit of explanation, just a little bit of
Yeah,
hesitancy, like
all they have to do is add like one line of dialogue saying, yeah, this guy was in the military or something. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean that was kind of my goal with Beowulf in that it really is all regular people thrust into irregular situations.
I, and that's a fantastic way to approach it, honestly. I there's always been something about like tales kind of that like it's the same retelling, right? It's set in the same era. Can't believe I didn't turn my phone off. uh it's, you know, if it's set in the same era, right? We've seen a version of Beowulf set in that era, like the classical era, a dozen times, and that's just on screen. You know, how many, I can't even imagine how many, you know, book versions or story versions there are, comic book versions there are of that same exact story set in that same exact era. So then it's just like the slight, you know, like slight difference of character interpretation, slight difference of like maybe visuals, but that's about it. But bringing it to the modern age and just giving us more like of a relatable experience, because like, let's be honest, every Beowulf story set back then, like we don't have the relatability to those characters. We just
Right.
don't. You know, that's why it's always billed as fantasy. Like we don't need to understand why XYZ character is more concerned with going off to fight a dragon or whatever than they are with, like, I don't know, taking care of their fucking kids. Like
Right.
so having something set in the modern day where somebody's like, hey, I got a job to go to. Like
Right.
there's a realism to that, and I think that makes it more relatable, more understandable.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
So we talked on paper before. You, I included you in a previous issue of Catalyst magazine, and you
Oh,
said
okay.
that this was going to go through issue six, 6 issues on this, but because of the reincarnation aspect of it, there could be other things. Now, is that something that you could give us a hint on as to what
Oh
that
yeah,
might?
there's almost definitely going to be at least a prequel and a sequel. Um, right now, I have an idea for a prequel. I want to. People keep asking me why Grendel isn't in this comic book, so that's something that I want to address in the prequel. A lot of people don't even know that Beowulf didn't just fight Grendel. He also had other adventures that just weren't as famous.
Right.
Um, so but yeah, I mean, obviously, Grendel is Beowulf's biggest opponent. So I want to address how that all went down. And beyond that, I already have an idea for like an old west tale featuring Beowulf. Um, Beyond that, I'm gonna have to think some more.
Gotcha. I like that. I like the expanding of the universe, because I didn't know that he, like, I thought, you know, Grendel was always the story that we read in school. That's always what's shown in movies and stuff. So
Right,
I also did not know that there's other enemies and other foes that he fought. So that's cool. I like that there is more of a story to be told there, and that it's not just like, oh, we're just coming up with shit and just like throwing this character into it, because we've seen
right,
many of those situations where it's like, oh, we're just going to take, I don't know, like fucking Thor. We're going to create a Thor story where he's fighting something completely unrelated to Asgardian mythology. Like, I like that it's actually something from within the pantheon of creatures he's fought.
right.
Outside of the Beowulf books, what are people going to be able to get with this Kickstarter? Because right now you have the Kickstarter going for issues 1 through 5. What else is available for people to pick up?
So we have issues 1 through 5. We have some special covers. Now the deluxe version of Beowulf 5 is not just a special cover. It also has a few pinups and stuff like that.
Nice. I'm a big fan of extra material. Back of the book material is like my whole personality basically. This whole shelf over here is just sketchbooks and art books and stuff like that. And
Oh,
I
cool.
I get salty if I get like a Kickstarter book and it's like a full volume and there's nothing in the back. It's just like the last page is the last page of the story, and there's no sketches, there's no script, there's nothing. There's nothing. And I'm
Cool.
like,
Yeah, so you're definitely going to want to get the deluxe version. Um
I'm hoping that you're gonna put all this stuff in a trade. Is that a plan after 6?
I mean, probably. I mean, we're gonna have to see. I mean, I guess we'll have to see how much demand there is for a trade, right?
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, I myself. That's why I've been going with the digitals. I do not collect singles. I actually ordered. I did a Kickstarter recently for, I forget what it was, but I just got the trading cards because I do collect trading cards. But then they sent me a the single issue comic, and I was like, I didn't want this. That was the whole point. Like I got the digital, I
Okay.
got the digital copy, I got the trading cards, but they sent me the comic anyway, and I was like, I mean, I just wanted the cards. Like I said, I don't have the space. That's all hardcovers and trades behind me.
Yeah,
And even
comic books, like the floppy issues, do take up a lot of space, don't they?
I used to have a closet full, and then when my now wife moved in with me, we needed the space, and I was like, well, shit, I got to get rid of 36 short boxes. And then
Yeah.
when I freed those up, and I was like, wow, I forgot this closet was so big. Like,
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
it's wild. It's wild. It's definitely an obsession that requires a lot of money and a lot of space, not just not just the love. The love is always going to be there, but like you're not always going to have the space for it. Like this is the one room I get in this house, so it's like I'm trying to figure out, like, I need to replace this shelf to get the extra 3 inches, to get a couple more books on there, because it's I can't expand. The wife's got her own stuff as well, so she gets all the other rooms. It's just how it works out.
That yes, isn't that how it always works? Yeah, my wife is the same way. She thinks she's so generous because she gives me like my office, but then it's like, oh, she gets to decorate the entire rest of the house the way she wants.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's how
first world problems, right?
right. Truly first world problems. Oh, we've got an extra room. Oh man, how terrible for us. Oh,
Yeah.
but yes, big fan. I gotta tell you, I gotta say, I skimmed it when I featured you in the magazine. I skimmed the book. I never read it. I've probably only read half the books that have ever been in Catalyst. That's the fucked up part. Like,
Oh,
I'm more focused on the promotion than I am the actual consumption of the media. So it's like I get the emails out, I get the questions out, I put the book in, and it's just like I'm more focused that it lines up on the page in the in the PDF than I am reading the actual comic. It's kind of crazy.
well,
But
yeah. So, well, you said you do your own comic book as well, right?
I'm going to be. I just recently finished my first book. It's a little novella, but it's set in the world of what will be my comic book series. I am trying to sort out an artist for that right now, but it's called Wolfpack. It's the first book is called The Price of Freedom, which took me like a year to nail down the title. I don't know. I don't know how other people do it, but I was just like, I don't know what the title of this book is going to be. But I wrote it through the magazine. That's actually part of the reason why I started the magazine to begin with. Is I have sketchbooks and notebooks full of ideas, and just had been producing nothing. So I was like, I need to give myself like a deadline. I need like to
Right.
write for something. So I started this magazine to promote everybody's stuff, and then I was like, but I will also every issue make sure that I have a piece of my work in it, and that is how I'm going to put out my book. And that's how I put out the chapters. And it's funny because anyone that's read it through the magazine should, like, when I actually get the everything done and finished up, they're going to be getting a completely different product. I changed the guy's name. I changed a bunch of the settings, like the whole flow. Because
Okay.
the editing takes over, all your initial ideas. Because I wrote that story free flow, and that's why it's one of my like kind of standard questions in the magazine is like, do you write with like a full plan, or do you write free flow? Because I went in with the idea of this guy, like secret agent guy, goes off to find information about this mysterious mercenary group. That's all I had when I started, and the rest of it just kind of happened as I wrote it. And it's it came out pretty cool. Like, there was a romantic subplot that happened that I had absolutely no intentions of writing. That was cool. Like, it was just like I was writing and I was like, oh, this could go this way, and I was like, let's go this way and let's just see what happens. And that's what happened. So it just wasn't something that I planned. And then when I went to editing, my friend who first looked at it was like, so who, like, is this guy supposed to be like a government agent or whatever? And then I was like, no, he's kind of like an off the books guy. And she's like, oh, okay, so then why are they meeting in the Pentagon in the first scene? And I was like, that's a fair point. That's a really fair point. So I had to rewrite the entire opening of the book.
Oh wow. Yeah, I think I remember your story now that you went in a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, I mean, when you're working on your own stuff, it can be really hard to read other people's stuff, which is a real shame because I mean that's why we get into this, right? We want to because we love comic books and fiction and fantasy in general, right?
Yeah, there's so much cool stuff. Like another part of the reason why I made the magazine is because I kept finding people who I had never heard of before.
Right.
Like because when COVID hit, you know, all you had was sitting at home, being on a computer, on your computer, or your phone. I was just cranking out on Instagram, and then I'm like, how did I never hear of this person? How did I never hear of this book? How like, and I kept finding new and new stuff, and I'm like, if I don't know, and I thought I was in the know, like I thought I was pretty connected. If I don't know, a lot of people don't fucking know. So like, let me do this magazine. Because the magazine started off as this massive, massive idea, because that's kind of how my ideas all start. It started out, I don't know if you play games, but like Steam, the Steam
Okay.
of indie. Like it was going to be indie comics, indie music, indie
Uh,
everything, right? But it was going to be the place to go. You wanted indie shit that wasn't tied to some big corporation. This was the fucking place to go. That was the idea I had. And then, you know, I realized that would take probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, and hundreds of people, you know, servers
right.
and coders and all these things that I don't have the access to at this point.
A
So
little bit
I
too ambitious.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little, you know, it's a little macro. So I'm like, how let me start paring this idea down and try to figure out like what can I do now? Because I'm like, this stuff is going to be happening. Like people are going to be making these books now. They're not going to be waiting for me to make this platform. So I just I figured why not do a magazine? Because I'm a big fan of Wizard. Like even to this day, like the original Wizard magazine, like it's fucking awesome. I've got a whole shelf. Like the bottom two shelves over there are like Wizard and Fan and all
Oh
that
God.
stuff. And
I remember Wizard. Do you watch the cartoonist kayfabe recaps of Wizard?
no, I didn't know that was a thing. I found a Twitter that like talks about some of the old features, but I didn't know there was a video.
So, well, do you know what cartoonist kayfabe is?
Hmm, no.
So that's probably my favorite comic book YouTube channel. It's J- Jim Rugg and Ed Piskor,
Oh
um,
yeah, Pisco. Yeah.
and they go through they go through a lot of different stuff. But and it's funny. Apparently, they hate going through. I don't know if you're a Wizard like aficionado, you might not like it because they make fun of Wizard a lot. Which
Oh
I mean, let's be honest, Wizard was pretty ridiculous in a lot of ways. But yeah, I mean, that was my first introduction to like, the idea that there were people behind making the comic books,
yeah,
which was like a whole different world for us back then because I mean, people growing up now don't understand like you have hundreds and hundreds of hours of YouTube videos of comic book creators, like you can sit and find videos of Jim Lee sitting at a sketchboard. Like that sort of
yeah.
thing didn't exist when we were kids.
Exactly. Exactly. I remember watching what was it called? Was it Pictionary? It was Pictionary, or it was a show like Pictionary where like they had people draw stuff, right? But they had
Win, lose, or draw.
it might have been Win, Lose, or Draw. But they had was it Chris Bacalo on there? And they
Oh,
were like, oh, they're like they said his name, and I was like, why do I know that name? And it like dawned on me that this was the guy making X-Men comics, and I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. Like I didn't know it was one of those, like I didn't know these people existed outside of the comic book space.
I mean,
Like
yeah. I mean, it's crazy, but like, yeah, for a really long time, other than the little name in the credits, you knew nothing about the creators or the people who made the comic books that you love. And yeah, Wizard kind of changed that. Wizard kind of ushered in the era of like the superstar artist and the superstar writer.
definitely. I mean, I read tons of interviews with artists and writers and editors, and like just like a lot of behind the scenes people that I had. You just see those little names, like you said, you see the little credit line, and you're like, cool, you know. And sometimes, especially in the Marvel books, they would make it like a fun thing, you know, they'd Jam and Joe Mad or whatever, you know, like that was I was like, oh, they're having fun with it. And then I would read an actual interview with actual Joe Mad and Wizard, and I'm like, this dude's actually kind of cool. Like, he's got the fucking wall scrolls because they used to have photos with the stuff. So it's like he's got the fucking ninja scroll on his wall. I'm like, that's fucking dope. Like, this guy is really like a real human being. Like you said,
Yeah.
we didn't have that. Now, like you said, it's so much content.
Right.
It's like you in 2023, you can really like nail down what you want to consume that's comic book related and never have to think about anything else because you will have so much of whatever that little thing is. Like, whatever, if you say I just want to watch stuff, I don't know, Squirrel Girl. Squirrel Girl is everything you want to watch. You could find videos on just like countless videos on just Squirrel Girl. And
Yeah.
that's so cool. Like, it is such a cool era to be in, that you have all this media for like even the most niche favorite characters. Like, there are videos about Maggot from X-Men,
Yeah.
and that blows my fucking mind because I thought I was the only motherfucker who liked him when he showed up. I was like, that's such a cool power. Like, it's crazy, but it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, trust me. I was definitely a Wizard guy growing up. Like, I had the subscription. That was the most exciting day of the month when the Wizard magazine came out. And I would run up to my house and tear it open and flip through it. Yeah. And like, some of the stuff that Wizard did wasn't great, like, like, kind of like encouraging the whole speculator aspect of the comic book industry, and
I
all
agree.
that stuff. Yeah, and all that stuff turned out to be, a giant bubble that was, just about to burst. But
That almost ended the fucking industry, really. Like,
yeah.
that was such a I came in like right at the tail end of the actual speculator boom. Like, I started reading comics in 96, and
Okay.
like a Wizard 68, I want to say, was my first issue,
Okay.
something like that. But it was just like, I came from watching the X-Men comics, watching the Spider-Man cartoons, watching Spider-Man cartoon, watching the Fantastic Four cartoon, like all the shows that are like classic representations of who these characters are. And then I pick up my first ever American comic book, and Spider-Man's a different guy. He's got blonde hair and his name is Ben Riley. And I was like,
Oh,
what the
wow.
fuck is happening? And I was in the whole way. But and I was coming in on the back end of the clone bullshit. like, Onslaught was about to happen and all this stuff was going on. And then it's like, I pick up the Spider-Man issue that's like related to Onslaught, and it's like Peter Parker's dying of clone degeneration disease. And I'm just like, what the fuck do you mean clone? He's a clone? Peter Parker's a clone? Like, I was just out of my mind about everything that was happening, but it made me want to know everything. So I just started diving in, and Wizard was just like the perfect supplementary material because they were shitting on the Clone Saga damn near every issue at that point. They were just
Yeah,
like,
they
the
hated that.
Clone
I
Saga's
remember
fucking
that.
insane. I can't believe they're doing this.
Yeah, the the Spider Clone Saga was kind of like the, what do they call that? The One More Day storyline before that all happened.
Oh man, the One More
Like,
Day was so fucking annoying.
yeah.
I knew when they announced they were going to do that, I was like, this is stupid. Like, this notion that we don't like like the people can't relate to these characters because they're married. I'm like, I've only ever read Peter Parker as married to Mary Jane Watson. Like,
Yeah.
I've only ever read him that way. So like, what do you mean I can't relate? Like, I'm buying these comics, I'm reading them, and what was I 17 at the time? Like I don't know shit. Like I don't know that he had other girlfriends. Like anecdotally I do. Like I've at that point I'd read 5 or 6 different articles in Wizard and Fan and whatever about the fucking neck snap of like
Right.
he's still carrying the guilt of that. And I'm like, man, that must have sucked, but like I wasn't there for that. So for me, I saw them date and like flirt on the show, and then when I picked up comics, they were married. The first
Right.
time I saw Mary Jane in the comics, she was pregnant. Like
Right.
that to me, like the natural progression of Peter Parker has always been that he grows up and fucking has a kid. So like when they lost that kid, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
But then,
Well,
but then he didn't lose it, and she's still out there, and they should bring her back. That is my fucking forever stance. They should bring her back, and they should make Peter Parker. I don't know, make him a single dad. Like leave Mary Jane with what's his face with her. I don't know, miracle children. I'm still not sure how that happened. I don't know if you're current on the Spider-Man. It's a little wild.
no. I To be honest with you, I nowadays I'm probably over 90% indie comics.
Okay. All right. So what are you reading? What are you reading indie that like really gets you hyped, that really gets you excited?
So my favorite current comic book is Barbaric by Vault Comics.
Okay.
Um,
Oh yeah,
so
yeah.
so Barbaric is a kind of an homage to classic Conan the Barbarian comics. Uh, the premise is what if what if Conan the Barbarian had a what if a witch cast a spell on Conan the Barbarian that he can only act altruistically. So
Okay.
yeah, so it's great. It basically he has an axe that kind of a talking axe that acts as his like Jiminy Cricket.
Okay.
Like the axe tells him whether or not he's allowed to whether or not he'd be acting altruistically or not. But the other thing is that the axe kind of has ulterior motives because the axe gets drunk the more blood it spills. Like
Mm.
when it gets covered with blood, it kind of has the same effect as for humans, like when we drink a lot of alcohol.
Okay.
So yeah, so this is, in my opinion, I mean, I love classic um, um, Conan the Barbarian, and I've always thought that I've always I've always been a huge fan of that, and to me, this is a great kind of um, a curveball on the whole Conan the Barbarian thing.
It's one of those books that's on my list, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. I've perused the issues when I've been at the comic shop, but it's not something I've read yet. It does look interesting. How do you feel about what was the other one that was it was Conan, but it wasn't Conan. Um Cimmerian. I think it's Cimmerian.
Oh, I read that. I thought it was all right. I mean, yeah. So they're playing off the fact that Conan the Barbarian is now public domain. So yeah. So
Oh, really?
yeah.
Wait, so if
Um,
he's public domain, why isn't Marvel doing it anymore? Or is that the like
I think that's why Marvel's
official
not doing it
rights?
anymore. They don't like the fact that they don't have like the copyright.
Oh, maybe I misunderstood what was going on. I thought that the Burrows is it Burrows, right?
No, it's Robert Howard.
Howard. I thought the estate, like the family had basically like made a deal with another company, and that's
Hmm.
why man, I wonder. Because I did think it was weird that like when I saw the Sumerian, I was like, why is this Like, why are they making? Yeah, like why are they making more fucking Conan? Like, I thought the rights to Conan were like locked down hard, but like
Well,
it's been a long fucking time. That's a fair because it's like what 100. I thought it was like 120 years after publication or something.
I thought, well, I don't know. I don't know the specifics, but I do know that just because something's public domain, that doesn't necessarily mean you can just do whatever you want. Like there's still weird laws like before you do like a public domain character, you have to talk to a lawyer because okay, like the laws are really weird because it's like if you do like a Snow White comic book,
Right.
you're allowed to do that. But if you make her look too much like the Snow White, like from the Disney movie,
Yeah.
like that's a problem.
Right. Yeah, because the original. Yeah, that's what it is. I think it's 70 from the original publication if it's like an individual work, and if it's
Yeah.
like a company work, like if for what anything that Disney's come like Dumbo, let's say, Disney, like you won't be able to make anything Dumbo for like 120 years after Dumbo was created.
Well,
So
yeah, I mean, and it's gonna start to get really crazy now because like a lot of like the biggest characters in the world are getting close to being public domain. I
yeah.
mean, I know Mickey Mouse is gonna be soon.
Oh shit,
I
that's
know
right.
I know Superman is gonna be soon. But I mean, but let's be honest, these billion-dollar companies, they're gonna figure out some way around it.
That's yeah, that'll be interesting to see because I know what was it? Winnie the Pooh just became public domain, but like for
Yeah,
the original work, and
yeah, I
then
know they
right
made
right
a
after I saw that there was like a movie being made, like a horror version. I just
so
saw somebody is
they
doing a
made a
comic book.
slasher they made a slasher movie about
Right.
Winnie the Pooh, which is the idea that Christopher Robin abandons Winnie the Pooh, and so Winnie the Pooh decides to go get revenge. And
That's dark.
yeah, all of the reviews that I've seen say it's like just borderline unwatchable, like it's that bad.
I feel like that's like the genre, right? This like hardcore slasher, like it takes like a certain kind of person to watch it. Like
Yeah.
you got to just be like truly numb to like any kind of storytelling. It's like every time I've watched like a horror movie, I'm just like I'm so fucking bored. Like
Yeah.
it's got to have like a weird, almost always like for me, it's got to have like a weird sci-fi twist to it. Like if it's not a well written story, I need to see like cool sci-fi shit. Like one of the best examples I always have is the movie 13 Ghosts from like the early 2000s. Not a
Yeah.
good fucking movie. It's a bad movie. Like I'm perfectly okay to admit that. But like they got some really cool fucking like kill scenes because they like the house they're in cuts people in half and shit. Like it's got some cool scenes. And it's
Right.
like the movie House of the Dead, which is based on a video game. Terrible fucking movie. Horrible acting, horrible writing. But they use this ridiculous but kind of awesome at the same time mechanic of when they go, like when they fall into certain places or they go into certain houses, they literally just cut in scenes from the game, from like the arcade game House of the Dead.
Oh
It's
my
fucking
god.
crazy. Well, like it's like that's the only reason I like that. I like the movies because it's ridiculous. Because it was just like instead of just shooting actual zombie fight scenes, we're just gonna cut in scenes from the fucking video game.
Oh my god.
It's wild.
This
It's
seems
wild.
terrible.
Yeah, it's like it's there. That kind of movie is almost never good. Like I remember the first time I watched. I know this might be sacrilegious because I'm sure there's a lot of fans, but the first time I watched the original Texas Chainsaw, I was bored out of my mind. And I literally I finished it and I was like, I can never have those 90 minutes back. Like that is gone forever. Like I
Yeah.
was so mad because my girlfriend at the time watched it the night before, and I don't know, she freaked out. She called me. She was like out of her mind scared. And I was like, wow, like I didn't realize it was that serious of a fucking movie. Like I didn't realize it was that scary. So I was like, fuck it, well, I'll watch it. And I watched it and I was just like, oh my God, this is boring. Like this is deadly boring. And I was like, no, never again. And then I watched the new one with, was it Jessica Biel? And it was marginally better in so much as they got one jump scare out of me. But outside of that, boring. I was like, this is kind of a boring story. Maybe this is just like not a story that people need to make movies about anymore.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre at a young enough age that it was interesting to me. I don't know if I would say that necessarily scared me, but it's just a really, really strange movie is the main thing that I like about it.
Yeah, it's definitely weird. It's definitely weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of trouble with horror. I don't it How should I put this? I'm a hard person to scare, you know what I mean?
I feel you. I feel you.
Um
Uh,
like like my wife has the exact opposite problems. Like she just like she watches she we start watching a horror movie and like she's immediately like in the fetal position like just like scared.
so the
I'm just
anticipation of it even is
yeah.
scary. I see.
And I'm just like yeah, I don't know. It takes a lot for a movie to scare me. And it's not always necessarily consistent. Like I can't necessarily explain why certain horror movies scare me, but like y- yeah, it's very very rare that I see a horror movie and think, "Oh, like that's really scary."
For me, there's only one movie that holds that. I've watched a bunch of movies that are like technically horror, but for me, they're just like really crazy. Like it's like a really crazy fantasy is what it ends up being for me. Like was it the Exorcism of Emily Rose? That's a good movie. That's like a good movie. It's crazy. Like it's a crazy fantasy movie.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of movies like that that are like supposed to like was it oh my God, it's the sister from Dexter. Um Quarantine, I think it's called.
Okay.
It ends up being this like a really great example of how good an actress she is, because I thought she was just a bad actress because I watched 7 seasons of Dexter or whatever it was it seven, it might have been seven, yeah. um like all the whole series of Dexter, and I was like, I fucking hate her, like I hated her so much. And then I watched this movie and I was like, oh shit, no, that like they wanted us to hate her. She was supposed to be hated. That's the point. Like
Right.
I thought she was just a bad actress. I was like, why don't I like this character? This is horrible. Like but she did a great job, and it's like it was definitely supposed to be a scary movie. Like it's made that way, but I think it brought the right kind of like dread. Like it wasn't, to me it wasn't like a scary movie. It was just really an interesting approach to this like idea of like, I don't know, mutation, or maybe it was even aliens. I don't remember what like the setup was, but it was just really interesting, and like the cinematography was interesting. The way they did certain things was interesting. So like for me, it was a very good movie. But like the only movie that I've ever watched that is like genuinely scary, and I do not know if I want to watch it ever again because I've seen it like 2 or 3 times now, and every time I'm like, I forget that this is so fucking terrifying. Is Event Horizon. Event Horizon to me is a genuinely terrifying movie. Like the
Yeah, that's a good one.
the pacing, the just the whole everything of it. I mean, you've got A-class actors, just everything about it has always been like, damn. Like, but generally I don't like horror. I don't like, my wife hates it, but will watch it like on purpose.
Mhm.
And I was like, why? You like, you're gonna be scared. Why? Like, why are you watching it? Like, I don't want to. If I don't like something, I'm not gonna watch it, just for like the sake of watching it. I don't understand that at all. Like,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
outside of, so Sword of Sorcery seemed to be very much your bag. The Sumerian, the barbaric, anything outside of that genre that you're reading in the indie space.
Well, what else am I reading right now? I read a can I think of the name of the comic book? Have you read the comic book that Patton Oswalt does for Dark Horse?
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Oh, really? What is it called? Minor Threat is the name of the comic book. And
Oh,
that's good.
I've heard of that. I've heard of the book. I didn't realize that was Patton Oswalt. Jesus.
Yeah. It's yeah, I'm enjoying it. It has covers by Mike Mignola. The artwork is good. It I would say that's firmly in the superhero genre.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually read like quite a few Dark Horse comic books. Have you read Black Hammer?
No, but that is something that is very much on my list. That's like probably gonna be I'm gonna pick up all the trades at once and power through it. Like that's I skimmed through a couple issues and I was like, damn, this looks really good.
Yeah, so that's more of like a kind of I would say like a Twilight Zone-y kind of um a Twilight Zone style like premise, you know what I mean? Like it just like these guys are stuck in a town, they don't know how they got there, they can't leave. They're trying to send messages back to uh like where they come from, but like the messages just don't get there.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's a really fun comic book.
Okay.
Kind of eerie. Like I said, uh very Twilight Zone-esque.
All right. All right. We'll definitely have to check that out because that's been one of the so like I categorize like everything that's like through a major publisher, even if it's not the big three. I always say the big three because Image I feel like is big enough that it's a big um I still like if it's a company that's been around for more than I don't know, probably 20 years, I feel like that's a longevity that puts you into the mainstream. Like that's you're in Diamond, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's that to me, Vault climbed that ladder very quickly. I feel like Vault in my head was like this unknown, came out of nowhere, almost like artisanal comic book just because of the presentation. Like they had the wraparound covers, like everything looked like design wise, it was so on point, like so like pin perfect. And then all of a sudden everyone's fucking talking about Vault books. And it was just like, I feel like within 2 years, like it was such
Yeah.
a fast growth. And then was the other one that's kind of growing fast. Although lately I feel like they've kind of like teetered off was Europe Comics. Europe Comics is like they kind of like came up very fast in my radar and then they just kind of staggered. I don't know what happened there, but then like you also have shit that's like came out of fucking nowhere. They changed names. They were Behemoth at first, but they
Yeah.
changed to something else. I forget what it is. But it's
Yeah.
like they out of fucking nowhere. It's like, oh, they got 4 books out. I was like, what the fuck's happening? Like,
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I think that these comic book companies like kind of come and go. I mean, I don't know. I know that it's insanely difficult to run a comic book company without like the backing of Disney or Warner Brothers, but
and I
yeah.
think there's no better example of that than Valiant. Valiant when it was bought out, when the rights were all bought out, they came out so strong. They came out like a bunch of books. I think they, you know, probably 3 or 4 books right out the gate, and then it was just like boom, 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 and then it was crossovers, and then it was like everything, but like at a really good pace. And then I think end of last year, or I think it was end of last year, they were like, oh, they're going to be scaling back and only putting out 1 book at a time. And I was like, ooh, that's not good. Like that's not a good move. It's not a good omen, I guess is the right word. Like it's not really. I thought Valiant was gonna be like back, like all the way back, and then it was just like when I heard that, oh, they're cutting back books, and I was like, Not again. I've been through this twice with Valiant now.
Yeah,
Like I'm old enough that I have seen 2 downfalls of Valiant. Let's please don't do that.
exactly.
Outside of the, so like what I would classify as majors, do you read anything like, self-published, like a Beowulf, like anything small press and self-published stuff?
Yeah, honestly, I back a lot of Kickstarters, but like you, unfortunately, I don't have time to read them. Like I'll read them, but I'll read them like 6 months after they come out.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. What's the most recent one that you've read?
Well, so I'm really excited because my friend Ian Mondrian, he has a comic book called uh the White Horse,
Okay.
which I just found out it's coming out. Um he had that on Kickstarter a little while ago, and now it's finally coming out, which is awesome. And I'm really
Dope.
excited about that one. He did a story. I forgot to mention that I also do a horror anthology about once every 2 years, and he did a story for my first anthology. Um, so he's a really, really talented writer, and I'm excited about reading his comic book. He said that they should be mailing it out soon, so I'm excited about that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Let me ask you, as a Kickstarter person on both ends, right? You have books on Kickstarter and you back books on Kickstarter. What would you say is the number one most important thing as somebody putting a book on Kickstarter, especially if there are delays?
Um, well, okay, so I mean, I guess maybe I'm not the right person to ask about this because I always, quite frankly, I I finish my comic book before I put it on Kickstarter. Um, and
Well, that is the ideal. You, my
right,
friend, are setting the gold standard there.
right. I mean, not every comic book that I back is finished, but I feel like there at least has to be some work done. Um, I mean, there has to be, or you have to just have like a track record of getting stuff done, right? Which I feel like right now I have a track record. Um, I
Oh,
mean,
absolutely, man. I'll be honest with you. Look, what like, I think I found you around, I think, issue 2. I think when you did the Kickstarter for 2 is when I first found you, and like got 2, and then it was like boom, out of nowhere 3. I was like, oh shit, okay. And 3 finished, and then you messaged me, hey, just let you know I got the pre-save link for 4. I was like, motherfucker, I haven't even read 1 and 2 yet. What the fuck is happening? Like like you were just on this, like, shit, all right. Where there are definitely a lot of people, especially in the Kickstarter space, that are uh it's like it's done, or like the Kickstarter finishes and then there's like no updates. And this is where I was going with that question, is trying to lead you to communication. Because
yeah,
that's for me, I will forgive any delay as long as there's communication. Like if somebody's like, hey, some shit happened, whatever, this is where I'm at. Like I have just now received books that I back in like 2019 because uh people had like medical situations and family deaths and like things that happened. And it's like, I am fully aware that life fucking happens, whether we wanted to or not. All sorts of shit in life happen. So for me, if it's communicated, hey, there's going to be a delay. I don't care what the delay is as long as you're still working on it. To me, I essentially have no maximum as long as there's actual
yeah,
progress being shown. Like, hey, I like there was one guy, I forget what the book was, but it was like he was in and out of the hospital, which
yeah,
like that's some real life shit to deal with. So for me, it was like, oh hey, I just got out of the hospital. Here's a couple more pages that I got done. Cool. That's more than I could ask for if you're going in and out of the hospital. Shit. Like you could have said, I'm not gonna do this anymore. I'd have been like, in and out of the hospital, I completely fucking understand. Like, keep that money, homie. Like
yeah,
I'd have been fine with that. But it's like to still be able to put that out. Like to me, communication is number one. Like, there was one book that I still haven't gotten, but it's like the first artist he had on there, took the fucking money and ran. That
I
sucks.
mean, that happens. I mean, I probably wouldn't give like a bulk payment to an artist like that. But I mean, I would say what would be even like a worst case scenario would be like, okay, what if the artist does like half the book and then just like falls off the face of the planet? You know, do you replace them, or do you just hold out hope? Like, okay, maybe eventually they'll be able to finish the comic book. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong with a comic book. Let's be honest.
Absolutely, absolutely. But to me, like as a consumer, I think, as long as something is communicated, and that's why there's a couple, and I'm gonna say these names because I don't feel bad about it at all, because it's like these motherfuckers are majors that came into the indie space. These are people who made books for Marvel and DC for many years. But like Scott Lobdell came out, put a book out with motherfucking Brett Booth, and I was like, oh, my favorite fucking creators from the 90s, like the dude that wrote X-Men through some of my favorite shit, and the dude that drew like half the fucking Wildstorm shit that I love.
Yeah.
Absolutely, like I didn't even have to read the fucking premise. I was like, back, like click, absolutely. Uh,
You
and
gotta
it's like,
wonder like how those Kickstarters go wrong too, because
right, like I would imagine these motherfuckers have like ins, like contacts, somebody to fucking call and be like, hey, let's get some shit done.
yeah, I mean another infamous one was obviously Rob Liefeld. Um
Do tell. I didn't know about this.
yeah, you didn't he wanted to reboot um what was it? He wanted to reboot
Wait,
what was the
was it
not Youngblood,
was it Brigade?
Brigade, yeah.
I remember this like being talked about, but I didn't think it ever went to Kickstarter.
It went to Kickstarter and it's now something like 5 or 6 years since it funded, and he's pretty much said he's never gonna fulfill it. And the thing that I don't understand is he's doing other comic books. Like, how do you do other comic books like and not fulfill without fulfilling like obligations that you have before that?
That is, especially for someone at that scale, like with that like history, to not fulfill, that's crazy to me.
I mean, there's no way you can convince me that Rob Liefeld doesn't have the the resources.
Yeah, like the money, the connections. Like you think you're telling me Rob Liefeld can't walk into a fucking bank, any bank, and get a fucking loan? Like he's doing all right. You know what I'm saying? Like he's doing okay out here.
Like, I mean, if I've got the connections to do a comic book, Rob Liefeld does. I mean,
That that is crazy. Ah,
you know, I don't get it either. I don't get how, to me, to go out and do other comic books, having not finished the last one is accepted people's money
yeah,
for it. I mean, that's the biggest thing.
that's a huge thing, because I have, there's my first Kickstarter that I ever backed is still marked as not received, because the actual comic that was supposed to be produced for it still hasn't been produced. I'm
Um,
friends with the artist on Facebook, and every once in a while I see him put pages out, and I'm just like, one day, because that's the problem. The problem for me is not even that the book wasn't fulfilled; it's that I was bought in to the concept. I love the concept of this, and I was like, shit, I just want to read this fucking book. And it's like he sent out, universe books and guidebooks and art books and all this stuff, but he never sent out, like, he never finished this comic book, which is only supposed to be, I think, like a 30-page book. And I was like, it's been 11 years. I could have slapped together a fucking comic book in 11 years, and I am not a good
um,
artist. Like,
yeah. So I mean, so for me, there's usually about a 2 month turnaround from the time the Kickstarter funds. So first of all, it takes 2 weeks for you to get your money.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Then it takes about a week and a half to get the proof from the printer, and then like another week to get it. And so I'm giving like another month leeway, from the time I get the books to, bagging and boarding them, putting them in the Gemini mailers, and finding time to, get up to the post office. And bear in mind, I'm still doing, my day job and trying to work on the next comic book. So yeah, so I think 2 months is like a good period of time. But then again, you also have to remember, like I said, the comic books are finished when I put them up on Kickstarter. Um,
Right, like the writing and the drawing, all that stuff is done.
right.
See, and that's reasonable. So I take it you're printing stateside.
Yeah.
So you're printing stateside, like you've lined up your resources to execute once you have the money. And I think that's very important. I think that's a great, honestly, that's a great fucking example to be setting out here. Because a lot of people are not doing that. And it's like and larger companies especially end up printing overseas to save money. So then
Yeah.
it's like, oh, we got to wait for the container. We got to like there's all these additional delays. Whereas I feel like the people who are just like, I'm going to bite the bullet. Yeah, it's going to cost a little more per book, but we're going to have the shit in 2 weeks. I think that's more reasonable. And I think that you're more likely just to get people to back you again. Cause let's be serious, like, especially if it's something that's not done and you still got to wait for the art to be done or the whatever to be done, and then on top of that ship times and printing times and all this stuff, it becomes very messy. I mean, that's one of the books. I did a whole episode on this a while back. Squarriors Volume 2. They were waiting on the creative team to finish the last issue to collect it, and then when they
Right.
did, it was like 2 more months just to get, oh hey, the books are coming in from the printer on the container, like the shipment is coming. Like it was 2 more months just to be like, oh hey, we got it. No, it was more because they said the book was done. The book was done, I think, like December or January, and then I finally got my copy end of March. Yeah, it was a long way, and especially because that book was supposed to be before. Like that's supposed to be 2 years earlier is when it was supposed to be delivered. But it's the same kind of situation as the Liefeld. Um, she was working on Marvel books, but like was not finishing her, like this was their book. This was like the her and her partner created the series. We're making this whole series, but we're like making the Lady Death card game and we're doing all this other shit aside from finishing this book. And that's the shit that I was like, wow, that's crazy. Like to be able to just be out on social media, be out in public and do other work, but not fulfill your obligation to people who gave you money. That's
Isn't that
crazy to me.
crazy?
That's crazy to me. So I know you wanted to keep this under an hour, so we're going to keep it tight here.
Oh, well, thanks.
Real quick, I just had one last question. You were going under Monarch Publishing. We talked about it a little bit in DMs, but you are now under a different publishing name?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm doing the comic book under the Comicsburg uh, publishing company, which is basically the same as what it was when I was under Monarch. The biggest difference is that my partner in Comicsburg is Marvin Wynn, who does the Edge comic book, which is another cool comic book that your listeners should check out. And the big thing was he had experience in the past of getting comic books distributed through Diamond. So he's
Mm,
helping me out with that.
awesome. Well, hopefully we get you in Diamond and we be able to have people order your book the classical way through their pull lists. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, and any listeners out there, if you want to check out, if you're not a Kickstarter kind of person, just mention it to your comic book shop owner. Yeah, there's this really cool comic book. It's called Beowulf.
Absolutely, absolutely. There are more than one way to get the comics that you want to get. If you don't want to go through Kickstarter, you could always go through your local comic book shop. And there are just is it ever going to be on like a I was going to say Comixology, but that's not a thing anymore. But
Yeah,
a
it's on
digital
Amazon.
platform. It's on Amazon. Okay, awesome. So we'll link that down below if you want to check out the Kickstarter. That's also, of course, linked down below. That way you can get all the issues as soon as the book is funded, which I think it's already funded, right?
Not quite.
Not quite. Well, then get down there in that link, folks. That's going to be it for this one. Grant, thank you so much for hanging out with me. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a nice conversation.
Same
And
here,
we'll
man.
do this
Same
again.
here. Definitely, definitely. That's going to be it for this one, folks. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
Try to tell you all the time, you ain't tell me first. I'ma kill the game with a multiverse. You gotta hold me first. Yeah, but I've been a dig. Never got my credit, now they dipping for the end of it.